What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today I am delighted because we've got news about the second expansion of the Keyforge game. I was going to call it a trading card game, but it is, of course, not a trading card game. It is, in fact, a unique deck game. Ladies and gentlemen, set 2 is going to be called Age of Ascension, and we don't have a release date yet. They revealed it on a live stream, and it's going to be coming in the second quarter of 2019, which presumably is April, May, June. So sometime between April and June, we will be getting this set. No word on an exact release date. One would assume that it's not actually been set yet. And we all knew that a second set was coming, but purely just the fact that it's been announced and we've got some information is great. So, if you didn't watch the live stream, or even if you did, let's have a chat about all the new stuff that we need. Now, there were a few things that were confirmed which are very important. One of the things confirmed is that this will feature all 7 houses from Call of the Archons, but it will not feature any new houses that were not featured in Call of the Archons. So all the 7 houses that we know and love are staying around. No new ones are actually being added. So that means that we get Brobnar, we get Logos, we get Shadows, we get Sanctum, we get Mars, we get Dis, we get Untamed, but we do not know any others. And we were told that some of these are getting new tricks. So one example that was given in the live stream is that Untamed are going to have more +1 power card abilities and skills, which was something that wasn't really a feature of theirs back in Call of the Archons. Now, there were a bunch of things they said which, although interesting, don't give us a huge amount of new information. They told us there were going to be new cards that are supporting old cards. They told us that the cards are not necessarily more powerful than in Call of the Archons. They told us that they want multiples in decks, so they like it when you get a deck that has many of one card, like the deck I have that has 3 phase shift. They want things of that nature. And they said they were really going for variety. All of that stuff is good, but it doesn't tell us very much about the set. The good news is we do have some specific news about the set. So, one of the things they told us, there is nothing that relates to the colours of the keys. Remember that we do actually have 3 different colour keys in Keyforge. You've got to imagine that sooner or later, that is going to come into the game. What they said was there's nothing in this set that relates to the colours of the keys, but there may well be in future sets. Now, we have 370 cards in this set, and it is a mixture of cards from Call of the Archons and new cards from Age of Ascension. The card pool is 370 cards, 204 of which are new, and 166 have been carried over from Call of the Archons. Now, some eagle-eyed people among you might have already realised that that means we are not getting every card from Call of the Archons. Quick quiz, anyone tell me how many cards are in that set? Exactly 370, same amount as in this set. So if 166 are carried over, that means 204 cards have been removed from this set. The good news is we are actually getting what's called legacy cards. Legacy cards are Mavericks, except instead of going from one house to another, they go from one set to another. So one example that has been given, Quixo the Adventurer is confirmed as not featuring in the new set. Age of Ascension will not feature Quixo the Adventurer. But you could still get Quixo the Adventurer in your deck. It would just appear as a legacy card. Obviously, this leads to the interesting question of, can you have a card that is both a legacy card and a Maverick? And the answer is, we don't know. My guess would be either no, or it is extremely rare. Now, speaking of the cards which have been rotated out of this particular set, the designer of the game, Richard Garfield, made it very clear that they're doing this more at the common level than the rare level. Common cards you're generally going to see fairly often. So if we see something like Phase Shift, for instance, that's a common card, and you often get multiples in decks. It's something you see fairly often. It's something that you should frankly be used to seeing. You've probably played against it a lot. Whereas if you see something like Snecklifter, that's a rare, and I'm sure some of you have played with or against Snecklifter, but I'm assuming many of you haven't. Incidentally, these are just examples. There has been no confirmation of Phase Shift or Snecklifter being in the set or being rotated. I am using them purely as examples. But the designers talked about trying to make the deck structured, trying to make sure that we're getting a lot of variety, while also having the structure that we generally see in Call of the Archons. They want multiples of commons and uncommons, and they want to stick around the rares from both sets jumped in together. One of the other things they said, and I think this is very important, they made it very clear that there is not going to be any kind of set rotation. They said that their intention is that all decks from all sets will be able to be played together. So Call of the Archons was set number 1, Age of Ascension is set number 2, but they've made it extremely clear that they want all these sets to work together. The way they spoke in the live stream made it sound like sets 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 20, etc. will all be playable with Call of the Archons. They made specific reference to the fact that in a trading card game, you can't do this, and the reason is very simple. You have unintended consequences. New cards interact with old cards in unfamiliar ways. So the Pokemon trading card game recently implemented a ban of a card called Maxis because we are getting a new card Kabutops, which would be broken along with it. But that's not going to happen, in theory, in Keyforge, because you just put into the algorithm that makes these decks that the two cards that are broken never appear in the same deck. For me personally, that sounds really, really fun. Now, as well as this, we know that we are getting 3 new keywords in the game. So let's have a look, shall we? Alpha means that the card must be played before you do anything else. So an example of this would be the new card First Blood. It is a Brobnar card with an Ember bonus, and when you play it, you deal 2 damage for each friendly Brobnar creature. You may divide this damage among any number of creatures. Now, the reason this is an alpha card should be fairly obvious. If you can play it at the end of your turn, you can play down extra cards and it becomes much more powerful. So you've got to play it at the beginning of your turn, and it only lets you do damage for each Brobnar creature that is currently on your side of the field. Another example we have seen of alpha would be Binate Rupture. Each player gains Ember equal to the Ember in their pool. And again, this has pretty much got to be an alpha card, because otherwise you reap with all your creatures and then double it. It would be overpowered generally, but as an alpha card it makes sense. And since I've told you what alpha cards do, you can probably guess that omega cards must be played at the very end of your turn. So one really interesting one from this is Unlocked Gateway, which destroys each creature. Now, you don't actually gain any chains by playing this, as you would if you played Gateway to Dis from Wave 1, but the difference here is Gateway to Dis gains 3 chains, but you can play it and then play down a bunch of creatures you want from Dis, whereas Unlock Gateway, you've got to play it after playing down all your creatures for the turn, which makes a lot of sense. Another example here would be Dusk Witch, a 1-power creature from Untamed, which has got Elusive, you got to attack it twice to get rid of it, and Omega, but your creatures enter play ready, which means you play down Dusk Witch, and then that's it, your turn is over. Omega must be the last thing you do, and then your turn's over. But if you could play it at the beginning of your turn, then you could play a whole bunch of creatures and they'd be ready, and that would be a little bit unfair. Now, next turn, all your creatures will enter play ready, just so long as Dusk Witch survives until the next turn. Soft Landing lets you put creatures into play ready, but Soft Landing lets you put 1 into play ready. Dusk Witch is crazy good, but of course, you've got to balance this with the fact that it's got to be the last thing you do. And the third keyword here we see is deploy. Now, generally speaking, what we've played up till now in Keyforge is when you play a creature, you must play it on a flank, either to the far left or the far right of your line of creatures. Well, now we've got deploy, which means you can play a creature anywhere on your battlefield. So Lemindra is a Shadows creature, 1 power with elusive, but it gives your neighbours elusive. And this is kind of the point of deploy. Deploy, we were told, is generally going to be given to creatures which affect your neighbours. So now you can put it wherever you like, and you can give 2 consecutive creatures elusive by popping Lemindra down in between it. Similarly, Lion Boltram, sorry about the pronunciation, 4 power, 1 armor. Its neighbours get +2 power, so it's got deploy, which means you can put it down wherever you like and grant the extra power wherever you like. And of course, even though it enters play exhausted, the other characters, the creatures next to it, would gain that immediately. These new keywords sound very, very fun, and I think they're going to impact the game quite nicely. Now, the other key information we were given is that there is going to be a new starter set, but it's going to be a little bit different because it's only going to have 2 unique decks, what I like to call algorithm decks. It is not going to feature the 2 pre-constructed learning decks that we saw in the Call of the Archon starter set. And that is reflected in the price. The RRP of the Call of the Archon starter set is $40, whereas the RRP of this one is coming in at $25, which I think we can all agree is a fair bit cheaper. The other thing is they've redesigned the tokens to be a little bit smaller, and power and stun tokens used to be on cards that you would attach to creatures. Now they are on tokens and counters that you put on the creatures. You also get a couple of poster playmats, which I'm assuming means that they're basically made of paper and won't last terribly long. But I did see a whole bunch of people who weren't a huge fan of the Call of the Archon starter set because you were paying too much money for the pre-constructed decks. I think this is a much better way of doing it, and I'm just going to go out on a limb and say I'm definitely buying this. If nothing else, I need more Ember tokens. And that's what we know about it for the time being. We know that it's coming out in the second quarter of 2019. That's April, May, June. We know that there's going to be a starter set. We know that it's going to be the same 7 houses, and there's going to be new cards and old cards and all of that. It's very exciting. I've shown you some new cards in this video. I cannot show you all the new cards in one video. There's too many. But what I'm going to do over the next couple of days is bring you one video each about the houses, showcasing the new cards that have so far been revealed, which I think is fairly exciting. For now, ladies and gentlemen, tell me how excited you are for Age of Ascension. Tell me what you're excited about in this new set. Tell me what you think about the new key skills. Go nuts! But do remember to be nice, would you? And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, and follow me on Twitter at the Wossy, where we do talk about Keyforge, but we talk about other games as well. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wossy Plays.